Welcome to part 15 of the 1865 Forster and Andrews organ restoration and installation here at Tango Towers. So what we're going to do is we finished off where I hadn't quite finished on part 14 of this square frame, and now I have finished it, and I had a brainwave for once. What I've actually done, this is where when you're qualified as an electronics engineer and a church organ builder, what I've actually done where those pins are is I've soldered them to the rod in the middle. Now I've never known them move backwards, sideways, but it means that they're not going to possibly move sideways. So that's the new improved one, and I'll do that to the other frame which before we install it. So the next thing is to put those two frames back in the big frame, and then we can start reinstalling the trackers and making new ones where necessary. So that's the next bit. So the two square frames are now back in the big frame, and it's now upright, so the underneath is towards me, and what we're doing is putting the trackers in. So the first one didn't need repairing, so I've cleaned it off. And what I'm doing here, because you've got these buttons and cloths, I am just running the new buttons on a tapped wire in that cordless drill, because it saves such a lot of hassle later on. So I'll just show you what I do. So we've got the new leather buttons. I dip the tapped wire in the tallow, put the button there, and it's the domed side which you feed onto the wire, not the flat side. And then we can run them onto that wire and run them back off again. And it's well worth the effort, I can promise you, because you're winding them onto there by hand, and that does not help your fingers. So these are brand new baize cloths, and we'll put the next tracker together. Unfortunately, the next tracker is broken, so we'll need to make a brand new one. Okay, so that's all the trackers in. So I had to make two new ones. One was broken, I presume, in taking the organ out of the church or in transit, and the other one broke taking it out. And there's a couple of other new ones which probably went in on its 1984 overhaul. So there we are, that's all done, and we'll put that flat, and we'll temporarily put it onto the organ building frame, because we need to finish off that Stereo Master radiogram, which we're turning back from a trinket cabinet into a radiogram. All the parts have arrived, so we'll just do that. It'll only be a few hours. And then I think we'll be getting on with that coupler mechanism. I'll look as to whether we need to do that next, because that's for the next keyboard, or whether we're going to start with the keyboard. I don't know. We'll have to assess what we have to do to the coupler and how it actually fits. So see you on the next part. Okay, so next bit of the organ we need to start on is the great key squares and the coupler. Now, on an organ with two keyboards, two manual organ, you always have the ability to be able to play the top keyboard, in this case it's called the swell, from the bottom keyboard, which in this case is called the grate. So top keyboard is swell and the bottom keyboard is grate. That is normal in the UK. There can be other ways around, but that is what's normal. So the swell is what we've been working on with the pipes in that wooden box. Eventually we'll have shutters on, it will open and close, and you can make it swell out, hence the name. So this is in a bit of a sorry state. This broke in transit. So we've got, if that's in camera, we've got a broken backfall. I think we've probably got two, we'll need to make new ones. So this is frustrating, because we're trying to work on the swell, we're trying to work on that top keyboard. But for us to be able to progress, we need to fit this, because it'd be so difficult to fit if we actually put the other unit in at this stage. We need to do this, And then we have the even more frustrating situation that clamps between the frame we've been working on and connects up with these. Are these stickers or are they trackers again? Anyway, it couples up with those. And then underneath, slung underneath the whole assembly, is the grate to pedal coupler. So once again, you can play the bottom keyboard with your feet from the pedal board. Most organs will have a swell to pedal coupler, so top keyboard to feet, and a grate to pedal coupler, bottom keyboard to feet. This organ doesn't have a swell to grate. That's quite frustrating as an organist because it's quite a useful feature to have, but it doesn't have that. Well, it makes the overhaul job a bit easier, and so that's something else we're going to have to do before progressing. So I'm going to have to jolly well get on with this, and the techniques we've learnt on the other, we have 3 square frames. We've got this one, we've got this one here, and then we've got a sub one on the top. So lots of adjustments as well to realign it when it's finished. So that's how we're going to start off. So you now see I've taken the top unit off from the top there, put it to one side. So the next thing we're going to have to do, I think, is to remove this one. They've all got to come out, and then we'll start at the bottom and build it back up again. As you can see, I've now dismantled it down to a single frame and the coupler action. So we'll now remove that. Right, I've now cleaned the cheeks of this part of the action, and the metal part has gone to repaint, and we're left with this square frame, which has got trackers or stickers poking out. They'll all need to come out, they'll all need to have new buttons and cloths on. I'm just going to move the camcorder. So you'll see there's supposed to be leather on the end of these, so no doubt these pick up to the back of the keys. So they're all going to get re-leathered. So I'm going to cut away the staples, and hopefully none of those bits in between are going to break like they did on the other two. So as you can see, that's now had all the squares removed. Oh, they're not squares, they're backfalls. Backfalls, that's what they're called. So we've got the pins in every other, like I was trained to do, rather than these daft staples which I cut out. Done in a new 11 gauge centre wire. That's been burnished on the linishing wheel, and now each one of those has got to be cleaned. Now the snag with these is each of those wires has to come out, and we need new buttons and cloths either side. So the lower one is called a check button, and the top one is the adjustment one. And I'm going to try and get these, because there'll be a mark on the wire where these have been. I'm going to try and get the new ones in exactly the same place as the old ones. That seems a sensible thing to do, because these are a real nightmare to adjust. So there'll be a new cloth there, but some of these have had rodent damage and they're going to have to be remade from new. I think we've got about 5 which are going to have to be made after the 56. So that's my next task. Right, so the back falls are all neatly stacked in 15s. They are in 15s. The reason for that is they're leathered at the back. Wrong way. So where they go up against the key at the back, they have leather, and that's been eaten away or it's worn, and it's black leaded, so there's good lubrication between the timber of the keys and the back of the back falls. I've just put the last two the wrong way around. Hadn't noticed that. They are all numbered, because remember all this stuff's handmade, and so there's a difference from one to the other. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to re-leather those in blocks of 15, and then the stickers, or the, I don't know whether they push or whether they pull, I've stuck them in. You remember I made that block of wood with the 656 holes in it, so we could put the soundboard springs all in order. Well, I've done exactly the same for these. So the one at the extreme right and the last 4 or 5 have got rodent damage. The end one has lost its wire. I'll probably have to find that at the floor of the storeroom. I expect the rodent damage has happened here. Try as you might, you know, mice can get in with an 1/8 of an inch gap. So all these are going to get remade as necessary. So we're going to start with leathering the back of those back falls, and so you do them in a batch and then you just cut them off the leather. I'll show you anyway. Okay, so we've got them all those back falls are now in clamps, 15, 30, 45, and the little bunch in the G cramp there, bringing it up to the 56. And the backs of those have been leathered, so it's all done in one operation with the animal glue like we usually do. So they're done, that'll be done overnight, and then we just split them with a knife. But first of all I'll have to black lead them, so that'll be done tomorrow. So we're now 8:45 on Thursday, and that's where we are at. So at this point I've applied the black lead. Remember, we have that graphite solution, and when that's dry that will be burnished, and then we'll cut these up individually with a knife. And so I've separated those back falls, and the newly leathered and black leaded bits on the end which go onto the back of the keys are clearly visible. They then get threaded onto an 11 gauge rod, which this is 11 standard wire gauge, which goes through the centre of those back falls in that position. So I'll get on with that. Right, so that's where we're going to leave this part. Are we on part 14 or are we on part 15? I can't remember. Anyway, we've put that new wire in. Those pins have been soldered to the main wire, and the whole thing's been reassembled. In fact, I'll put it up vertically if I dare. So now you can see we've got this back in position, these will go up towards the keys. We haven't put the trackers back in, or whatever, the stickers, the trackers. We haven't done those because I've realised that when you actually install this and you've got the keyboards in position, each one of those has to be threaded into a hole in the back of the keyboard. So there's no point putting 56 in, because you would never get them to all line up at once. So they're going to go in individually. So we do the overhaul on work on those as they go in one by one. So this bar here has been repainted, all the screws, in fact it's 2 new screws, because I drill one out at the other end, and there'll be a rod that pulls up with this, and what will happen is when you pull that, it will activate the swell to grate coupler. So that's how it activates. So it's going to, that beam is actually movable, goes up about 3/4 of an inch, so it will rise and fall to apply the swell to grate action. So that's where we are with it. So if you remember, we've got the next one, and this is what we're going to be doing next. So that one fits on top, and then the other one fits on top of that. So the two between them, these 2 ones which I've got to do yet, will be for the grate, for the bottom keyboard, and they will equate to 56 notes. So although I've got 2 to do, it's actually only the same quantity as we've got on that. So that's going to be the swell one. You'll see. So I'm hoping you can see that the keyboards come up to this. So that's how we're going to get that player's finger information to those organ pipes. So I think when we've put this in, we have to put the actual console fitting in with the draw stops. So, but say we've got a bit to go yet, because we've got that one I've just shown you, the one on top of it, and there's one underneath which is still in storage, which is for the pedal. There's 30 on that. So we're going to leave this part, and thanks for watching this part. I think it's part 14 or part 15. And we'll carry on with this coupler action, and next week we're going to be starting on the grate, the one I've just shown you.